and I got the newsfeed eradicator.
Love that thing.
Which it just deletes the part of Facebook that makes you want to look at Facebook, which is
that feed,
which is the constant drip feed of people's baby pictures or whatever.
I have a different strategy that's similar. Since now they let you unfollow and hide people, I just unfollow and hide everybody.
Butterscotch Hey everybody, welcome to episode 141 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the game dev comedy podcast of Butterscotch Shenanigans. I'm Seth and I'm the games programmer.
I'm Adam and I'm the reader of documentation.
I'm Sam and I have a Catapointy beard.
Catapointy?
He's got a Catapoint. This is a show where we talk about life, business, and working in the games industry. Today is March 2018.
Nice.
Before we get started, we have a warning. Anything could happen in this show. There's going to be profanity and we'll talk about adult-themed topics.
Yep.
Like business. So if you're a child, you know, then get your face on out of here. And your ears, especially. The ear part of the face.
Yep.
All right. In the news this past week, what happened, brothers?
I don't know. You have the bullet point.
I've got the bullet list. This is a bit of a rhetorical question. Just kind of throwing it out there into the ether to see what comes back.
Just in case one of us remembered a thing.
It's kind of a question. It's kind of a question boomerang. You know, I'm throwing it out there, but I got to be the one to catch it.
Yeah.
We'll just get hit by it very painfully.
It's rough. All right. So first of all, level head. It's the game that we're working on. It's looking good. We hired Eric Hibbler, who does the box art for our, well, everything.
Yeah.
To do the backgrounds.
Yeah.
So we have these parallax scrolling backgrounds, and we've been trying to use Inkscape to make them. That's
not its purpose.
So the difficulty is that you can't do texture super easily in Inkscape.
Inkscape is vector.
Yeah, it's all vector. So if you want to have, for example, like a bunch of what looks like a leaf texture, which is actually usually in Photoshop, you'll use a brush, and a brush is basically just a print of, say, a bunch of leaves.
Then you just kind of smear
rub it all
around.
over there, and then you got a bunch of these little leaves, right? But in Inkscape, if you want to do that,
I did art.
Yeah, in Inkscape, if you want to do that, you can do it kind of. I figured out how to mimic it a little bit with the cloning tool, but it's really.
But then you end up with 4 billion nodes because, and then your whole computer shits.
Whole thing is crazy. Can't zoom out, can't pan.
And on top of that, you know, I've been diving deep into the art side of things lately, and the problem is that art is a gigantic well of stuff to fall into. One of those is composition and backgrounds.
It's almost as if art is sort of like a discipline that you have to learn.
Well,
it's
a collection of
it's as if it's a collection. Yeah.
It's almost like that. Yeah.
It's like game.
It's almost like no one person, even if they call themselves an artist and is good at the art that they do, knows how to do all kinds of art.
All of the art.
So I was basically staring down the barrel of it, and Seth and I had a good conversation. And Adam hopped in and was like, you know what, maybe we should contract out just the backgrounds, because you got enough on your plate with learning how to do art effectively when it comes to animation and these character designs and then the environmental tile sets. Well, let's just take that off the plate.
Yeah, focus on the game, the technical game assets. We'll have somebody who can do the painterly backgrounds.
And the thing is, we know, like, the one thing I've always wanted our games to be able to induce is that feeling of awe that you get from playing some games where you boot it up or you see a particular scene and there's enough happening where you're just like, whoa.
It's like, what is going on over there?
And I think we've already hit it with the stuff we've gotten put in the last week with Hibbler's work. Where, yeah, you're going to boot it up and you hit play and then you go, whoa.
Exactly. Actually, not even that. You're going to boot it up and then already go, whoa.
Yeah, because that splash screen is just so fucking good.
But yeah, so I'm really excited about that because it lets me, it frees me up a bunch to not have to worry so much.
Yeah. Also, in our studio, you know, we digest a lot of news. We read a lot of sort of industry stuff. And one thing that keeps happening is this whole cryptocurrency blockchain thing just keeps coming up everywhere we look. And we're just having a hard time sort of making sense of all of it, you know, and so.
As appears to be most people.
Yeah. And so we found sort of a shortcut, a way to, you know, to just kind of more easily parse all these articles. There's a Chrome extension called Word Replacer. And it's sort of, if you've heard of the cloud to butt extension, where it replaced the word cloud with the word butt all over your internet. All over your internet.
Or the millennials to snake people.
Snake people.
That's another good one.
So this Word Replacer, you can just do any of that on your own terms. So we replaced blockchain with nonsense and cryptocurrency with monopoly money.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, all these articles made a lot more sense.
Yeah. It's very fun.
Where people are now using nonsense technology to produce their own monopoly money. And they think that this is going to really make them take off.
Yeah,
so,
it's really added a bunch of clarity to it. You know, I've been scrolling through articles. I'm like, oh, this isn't important.
oh, this is nonsense.
So I'd recommend it. You know, it's good for a laugh, especially if you forget that it's on because you're like, what?
Now, to be clear,
Ubisoft getting into Monopoly?
Blockchain is a fantastic tool.
Oh yeah,
it is not.
It's not actually nonsense technology,
right? But people are using it for nonsense, so it might as well be.
It's the same thing as when the .com bubble happened. I think is what we're looking at.
Pets.com.
Yeah, it's the whole thing where like things that didn't need to be put on the internet, everyone's just doing that because there was money involved. So that's basically where blockchain is. We've been enjoying watching it. Of course, we're in the Midwest, so we get to watch the money flow into Silicon Valley where all this is happening and just sort of enjoy the fact there's going to be a huge fallout at some point.
We're mostly just laughing because blockchain's been around for quite a while now.
Yeah.
And isn't it just kind of a weird coincidence that the minute Bitcoin hits $20,000, all of a sudden blockchain is the next big technology, right? It's a little bit suspicious.
That's right.
Apparently nobody believed in it until that random thing happened. So that should say something about this. Anyways, so yeah, word replacer, get it.
Have some laughs.
It'll help you kind of make sense of the world.
Yeah, we should actually come up with a list of all the key replacements a person can make to make the internet more understandable, readable place. So that could be a fun blog project once the new blog goes
also,
up.
one thing that I did to make the internet a more readable place is I went to my router and I blocked Reddit at the router level.
Yep. That's good.
Yeah.
So stop you from falling into that hole.
Yeah. So that, if I'm looking up information on stuff and then it's like, well, here's a bunch of dinguses talking about it on Reddit. I'm like, I don't need to go there, even though it technically matches my keywords because it's probably
it might have good information, but that's not the point.
It won't.
Well, the point is more that it's a trap.
Yeah,
you get there, you're like, well, I'll check.
We should also block though we don't go there, but we should also block the Steam forums.
Just on principle.
Just on principle. Just to make sure we can't get there.
Just to double down.
Do you think Steam can tell? Can they look and be like,
oh man,
there's this one house in St. Louis.
It's a black hole.
It just turned us off. Good.
Yeah.
Let it be known.
Yeah, I wonder if they're ever going to do anything about their forums. Maybe they already have. I guess we haven't gone in there. Who knows?
I don't know. Yeah, the big kicker with those is that there's always a default forum.
Yep.
That you cannot decide the permissions on, and that anybody can post in, even if they haven't bought your game.
Yep.
So
that's the one.
You don't get to gate your community. You don't get to decide who gets to be there.
And you can only pin something like 3 messages, so you can't just fill up the front page with pins, which is what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
we tried strategies for taking that thing down. Yeah. Didn't work.
Otherwise, industry news. It was Mario Day, March 10. MAR10, which looks like the word Mario.
It's kind of like May the 4th be with you.
Or Great Teen.
Or Great Teen. That's true. We got this whole year. We just locked that down.
Yeah, we got the year. So although there's a problem, which is once the year's done, we ran out of it doesn't repeat.
Yeah, we have to figure 19 out.
21 Great Teen, maybe, when that comes around. At that point, who gives a shit because we're dead?
Yep. So that's a long time from now. But yeah, so I mean, Nintendo being able to be like, hey, it's Mario Day. And then Google Maps, I believe, they work together to turn cars into like Mario Karts or something.
Now you can drive a Mario Kart.
You can drive one?
On the maps. Supposedly. I haven't
know
seen
they did
this
that,
on my device
They did
yet.
that with Pac-Man at some point. You could turn your map into a Pac-Man level,
right?
Which was very confusing.
But here's the thing, like,
very
Pac-Man
hard to play.
is such an old IP. It's like, who cares, right? It's just kind of like a cool video game.
Oh, they're still putting Pac-Man in stuff. I saw
it's so iconic,
it is, but it's the worst fucking character in the universe because when
it's a yellow circle.
Or is it the best?
The thing is, they would be okay if it was just a yellow circle, just like it is in the game, But they've box arted him, and he's just a sphere now. He's just a yellow sphere
with a weird mouth.
Yeah, he looks like the M&M candy.
He looks like a jawbreaker to me.
That's true.
Yeah, but I saw something
his mouth, and it's like the same. He's got layers like a huge jawbreaker.
Yeah, but there was some IP where Sonic and Pac-Man were both in it, I just saw this a few weeks ago. I can't remember what it was, but I was looking at the
level
picture.
Of fidelity is a little bit off between the two.
Well, but they both actually looked the same because they had made rendered 3D versions of both of them.
Was it like a Ren and Stimpy situation on Pac-Man where you could see like his veins, his weird face?
I mean, then it would have been interesting.
I bet that is out there on the internet.
Yeah,
a photorealistic version of Pac-Man.
Is that realistic version of Pac-Man doesn't take into account the key feature of Pac-Man, which is that he's mostly a mouth.
Yes.
Instead, they make him a circle and then have like kind of a face on it, like a more smiley face style thing, instead of having literally just half of his head, just his whole body be a gaping maw, which would be more appropriate.
Very horrifying.
It would be.
Yeah. It's way worse than Slender Man.
Yeah.
So what's going on with Nintendo Direct?
Yeah,
something happened.
Well, so
what
I
is it?
I just want to talk about it generally. So Nintendo tends to do a good job of, reaching out to their people.
Which people?
Theirs.
That's exactly my point.
They got those
fans.
people.
Oh, they're fans. Okay, gotcha.
So Nintendo Direct, they do, I think it's like once a quarter or something like that, which essentially it's just like their own E3, They just said, instead of having to care so much about this one time to announce all this stuff, they just do these quarterly things where they talk about what's going on, or they do these big announcements and stuff. So they announced, I think, Super Smash Brothers coming to the Switch.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Splatoon 2, a bunch of other cool stuff.
A new Super Smash Brothers, or is it a...
I think everyone's trying to figure it out.
No, it's unclear.
My guess is it's new, because why not? It's on Switch. So, but yeah, I mean, it looks really cool. But the whole point there is that, we talk a lot about the value as a game dev, or really as any creative person, of making actual direct contact, unfiltered direct contact with your fans. And it's interesting because platforms like, Steam, Google Play, iTunes, all that stuff, a lot of them do tout, you can interface directly with your fans through the review system or whatever else, but you still don't get, like, they have those email addresses, you don't, right? Which is the whole reason why we built our Butterscotch ID system, is so we could do what essentially is our own direct method, which is these email newsletters, the ballyhoo that went out recently. Nintendo, of course, is able to take it one step further because they have this massive fan base and a good chunk of money. So they can do these videos. Yeah, so they do these awesome videos. And then what they've done in there too is that, the company owners, like the CEOs and the designers and stuff, have become their own little characters, sort of. I think they have Muppets. They have like little puppets for them. So it's just this really fun, like, goofy thing that they get to put together. And it goes directly to the fans, and everyone gets super excited about it. And then there's news for like 2 or 3 days where everyone's sort of digesting the stuff. So they get to take over. It's just ridiculous. And so,
on Mario Day.
Yeah, on Mario Day. And so I saw someone posted like, oh, Nintendo won E3 already. And it's like, yeah.
They didn't even have to go.
Well, I think it's interesting because Nintendo, it used to be the case that Nintendo was competing directly with Xbox and PlayStation and then all the older consoles that existed
basically in the
that.
90s.
Basically the 90s and early 2000s. Where they were in direct competition because everyone's hardware was kind of the same, and they were actually competing on hardware and graphics and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, Nintendo just stopped.
Nintendo said, "Can we not?"
Yeah, they just stopped competing on hardware. I mean, they did weird, interesting things with hardware, but to create their own market entirely. Yeah. And so they just did their own stuff, and as a consequence, they just became a separate market. Yeah. And so I can completely see how they don't need something like E3 anymore, because E3 is where you go to compete.
E3
is where your AAA titles.
E3 is just where you go and you're like, look at the pores.
Yeah, look how much money we've put into this.
We have made photorealistic dog pores.
And the crazy thing from reading Blood, Sweat, and Pixels is realizing that so much of those E3 demos is just the smoke and mirrors stuff, right?
Yeah, it's not even going to be in the game at all.
Most of it gets thrown out. And also the teams crunch for like 6 months to build stuff for E3, and then they just throw it away. Continue working on the game. So it's like built in. Well, I guess it's probably not built into the budget if they're crunching on it. So it just seems like
never built into the budget.
Well, I'm wondering, to what degree other people might, start trying to do this, because of course, once there's someone doing it, everyone's going to start kind of. Well, I think
Nintendo is the only player in that tier who can get away with it, because I don't think Sony can do it. So, I mean, Sony does have its own thing.
I think Blizzard could get away with this.
Yeah, Blizzard.
They have BlizzCon.
Yeah, they already do, because they also don't compete. I mean, it's the same deal. They've created their own market that's separate from the rest, because they're independent of the consoles and all that. And they actually, I mean, they put their games on most of the consoles now too. Not all. I guess WoW's probably still on a PC, isn't it?
PC and Mac, yeah, but
PC
that's
Mac,
it. Yeah. You need 40 buttons to play it, so it requires
there's no way to do that.
Yeah, but I think it's just interesting because I think the major AAA studios still have to compete at something like E3 to get attention, but also they have to do it on behalf of the platforms that they're beholden to, because there's still so many exclusive titles and that sort of thing. And of course, those platforms are competing to try to capture mind shares so that people will actually buy their hardware and not the other one.
Yeah, so when do you think it'll be? Do you think it'll happen that because now it's just Sony and Microsoft now just sort of like at each other's throats for each generation of consoles. Do you think these companies will reach a point where one of them says, enough is enough, we're going to try to do something totally different from what the other two are now doing?
Well, the problem is that would have to be Microsoft doing it. And we all know what happens when Microsoft tries to do things differently.
You get Windows ME.
You get weird stuff or Internet Explorer.
Well, but the same thing with Nintendo, right? So like people joke about how Microsoft, every other operating system they make is a shit piece, right? And then Nintendo had the Wii U.
They also have shit pieces,
you know, and that's sort of the risk
of innovation.
Yeah,
right?
You're like, I'm going to try something totally new that nobody's ever done before, and you can't really do good focus groups with it and try to, work it in the market.
Well, I mean, think about like the Nintendo Labo thing, their cardboard box thing that you buy cardboard now from Nintendo and hook it up to your Switch, right? I mean, the thing is, I'm looking at it now that they put it together. I'm like, that actually looks, if I was a kid, I'd be like all over that shit.
And it's for kids.
If I was trying to pitch that to someone as an adult,
it's amazing that made it through.
Yeah. And I was like, all right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to die cut a bunch of cardboard. And then you put your controller in.
We're going to sell that cardboard for $30.
Yeah.
It'd be amazing.
And the best comment I ever saw about the Nintendo Labo thing was somebody just said, this is the most Nintendo thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. That'll work.
Yeah. But I mean, and this is something that, so I was working on my GDC talk over the weekend about game design and stuff. And we have this saying in the studio that I've worked into my talk as well, which is just that there's no such thing as a good idea, right? Because an idea is just nothing. You just thought of it and you throw it out there. You have no skin in the game, right? But it all comes down to the execution of it. And so maybe the Wii U could have been fantastic with some slight iterations or different marketing or whatever.
Or different titles even.
Different titles. And even something like the Nintendo Labo. I mean, fuck, if Sony did it, I mean, come on.
Well, that's why we're all laughing about it, right? It's like probably not going to work.
Right. Because Nintendo has the audacity to own it. Yeah. Right. And they know sort of what
they're proud of their cardboard.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And so it really just comes down to sort of how you wear it. It comes down to the delivery of it, how you frame it, and then just, of course, the quality of the thing itself. But that could have been a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Depending on whose idea it was.
Well, I mean, speaking of Titans sort of clashing over stupid stuff, Fortnite announced that they're coming to mobile. So Fortnite, which is basically overtaken PUBG in terms of, I believe in terms of concurrent users, or at least matched it.
Yes, because it's free also.
It's free, yeah.
And it looks better.
Yeah. Well, it's just generally more fun. But it's coming to Android and iOS devices. And the best part, we've always talked about crossplay being, an important thing because gamers don't give a crap if they don't care about the platform disputes that
they
are
just
going
want
on.
to play with their buds.
So it's coming to mobile. So I don't know how they're doing this, but kudos to them for kicking ass. So
sounds like an optimization nightmare.
It's in like a quarter. Very, very soon. It's going to be on a free to play on mobile. I'm going to pick that up.
I'm going to give it a shot. I just want to see how well it plays.
So here's the crazy thing. So we'd be able to do the thing we always talk about. We always want to do where, say, Seth's playing on his PC. I can whip out my Android device. Maybe Adam grabs the studio iPad. And we can all play together.
Unless one of us is on a PlayStation.
So here's the thing. So again, these stupid disputes that are going on, and PlayStation's been notorious for this for a long time, but they won't let PlayStation users and Xbox users play on the same game. Yeah. So even though these are games, this is a 100-person match. Fortnite is now splitting the audience, so it'll be a group of iOS, Android, PC, and Xbox people. And then a separate group that cannot interact of iOS, Android, PC, and PlayStation people. Because apparently they don't get to get along because Sony doesn't want to do this crossplay stuff.
So when you're playing on PC, you may have PlayStation people in your game, or you may have Xbox people in your game.
But never both.
Never both.
Which I still can't imagine how these matches are being made. It's just
talk about an annoying matchmaking algorithm problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is one of those bullshit things that it helps literally no one. It doesn't even help Sony.
No, it's going to slow down your matchmaking.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, this turns customers off of buying a Sony product in the future. Like this is such a clear sort of short term, like we got to maximize our quarterly earnings bullshit kind of a thing that you see from these huge companies where we need to take these anti-competitive practices to try to shut down our competition, which is Xbox.
It's crazy to me though, because it's not a win.
Nobody wins.
You know what I mean? Like it's not a win.
And it's even the case that I can't go into a lot of specifics, but there was a time when we were working on trying to figure out what to do with Crashlands, put it onto consoles. And we were considering all the different platforms, and Sony just lost out every single time because we were looking at these kinds of things.
Yeah, they wouldn't play
like,
ball with our cross-platform stuff, basically.
Yeah, well, to me, the crazy one, because we were looking at it for Crashlands, which isn't even multiplayer, so we'd have to deal with cross-play. But with the Butterscotch ID stuff, they would let us do it under this, huge suite of conditions. But the one that I'm pretty sure we're completely fine to talk about is how they handle achievements, because achievements are super important to them for some reason. And I think it has to do with this whole crossplay thing, because I was trying to figure out the rationale behind it, because I was like, are they worried about cheating? But I'm pretty sure it's just linked. The same worry. And so Butterscotch ID carries with it all of our perks, which we've also made synonymous on a per platform basis with achievements for that platform. So now you can unlock something in the game and then unlock the corresponding achievement on Steam and Google Play or whatever. Right. So our plan was just to do the same thing on PlayStation if we went there. But we were told we would have to come up with a completely new set of achievements, even though our achievements covered things like beat the bosses, beat the game.
Like, what is that?
That would be PlayStation only achievements.
That would be PlayStation only achievements that people couldn't make progress or so I was like,
and we can't have anything linked together. So if you played on PC or something like that, earned some achievements, and then you logged in on your PlayStation, we couldn't sync those.
Yep. And so let's say you do a playthrough of Crashlands, you're coming back and forth, and so you beat a boss on PC and then you move over to PlayStation. Well, now you can't go unlock that achievement unless you replay the game again and beat that boss. Yeah. And so this is what Sony's doing for this anti-competitive practices, just to be against other platforms.
It was so weird though, because when we talked about it, we're like,
it's not good for anybody.
It's not good for you or your player base.
And we spent so much time internally, and this is kind of that, like, where did the last 2 years go kind of thing. Like this is the kind of stuff that we had to spend it on. Just trying to figure out, like, okay, given that these are the constraints, is there a way that we can make this work in a way that isn't just terrible for us to implement, terrible for our players, terrible for literally everybody? The answer is no. There's no way to do it well. Yeah.
So we did a lot of thinking about it.
Yeah,
there's not a good angle.
This kind of douchebaggy business stance. I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah,
it just puts everybody into.
But I'm also aggravated by what Fortnite did, because they've done the quote unquote brave thing of publicly stating, we really wish that PlayStation would stop doing this, right?
Mm-hmm. But they still launch on it, because what they could have done with as much power as they have, they could have just said, we're not going to launch on PlayStation until they allow for us to do crossplay. Because the fact is, it's fucking crazy. I mean, I'm imagining being on their dev team on the network side, setting up this matchmaking stuff.
I would be.
Yeah, because
livid.
Yeah, because the thing is, the game and is made an Unreal Engine, and so the code base, they port it. Yeah, and so they don't have to do extra work to allow for PlayStation to sort of be on their network. They have to do extra work to exclude PlayStation, right?
Yeah,
because by default it would just work.
And it did. There was some weekend where they pushed out an update that didn't have that switch turned on.
But here's the problem, though. Of course, is that Epic is not just one game as a company, right?
Yeah.
They have many. So then you want to talk about, like, punching the hand that feeds you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because they're dependent on PlayStation. So all they can do,
throw your weight around.
Yeah.
Which kind of sucks.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what it is. PlayStation just gets to keep throwing its weight around.
So which they're only doing because they're at the top.
Yep.
Because I remember it was the case that in the previous generation, during the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3 days, all you heard about from developers was how sort of accommodating PlayStation was to all the things that different developers wanted to do. And even at that time, Sony was advocating for crossplay. And Microsoft said no.
Yeah. Oh, have the time.
Yeah, because whichever company's at the top is like, oh, it's me now. I'm in charge. They just start throwing their weight around.
I think second place is actually a good place to be.
It is. But I think it's an important lesson, though, that when these companies are doing it, if you're a PlayStation fan person or an Xbox fan person, just remember, these people don't give a fuck about you.
They will flip on you the moment they're at the top.
Yeah, so they're not doing this.
Whatever you think is their like a super ethical business practice that you're really behind, they're only doing it because they know that will get you in their camp.
Yep. Very frustrating,
ridiculous. All right. Otherwise, let's talk about life.
Yeah, what we got?
Let's talk about the world. The world habits.
Yeah.
What about him? What did you do, Sam?
All right, so here's
what have you done?
Here's what I did. All right, so
what have you done?
Here's what I did. Except on Friday. So I had a phenomenal day on Friday. So we do our 3-day weekends, which all of us continue to work, but it's not like a structured capacity, right? Just kind of do whatever you want.
It's not a weekend so much as just a not being in the office.
Correct.
Time.
So
and
usually taking care of life stuff, seeing friends, that sort of thing. So
I mean, that's what you're doing.
That's what I'm doing. Like you program all?
I'm just hanging out with Jenny and programming.
There you go. So that's
everyone has eating scones.
I haven't eaten scones recently.
Macaroons.
Nor macaroons.
Hot pot.
It's just we go on binges of things. We're just for a weekend we just eat a whole bunch of something. But
yeah, so I wasn't eating a whole bunch of something. But I did I got a ton of work done on Friday. I was feeling great. Life has been wrangled. Everything's awesome. And it rolls around 9:30 or so. And I'm not quite tired yet. And my wife, of course, turns into a pumpkin at like 8 p.m. So she went off to bed. So I was like, okay, I'll just, I'm going to boot up Celeste because I haven't gone to play Celeste yet, which is a new platform that came out. Do some market research for Levelhead.
Of course.
And so go to boot it up. But before I do, I'm like, I'll watch fail videos because it's Friday. I always watch fail videos on Friday.
It's Friday. You got to get down on Friday.
You got it, And so boot it up and watch, fail video. And then I realized I had missed one from, a couple weeks past. I watched that one.
Yeah, you got to catch up.
And then, but this is the crucial moment. So these are each like 6 minutes long, right?
Yeah.
It's now been like 15 minutes. And I'm actually tired at this point. For whatever reason.
These are brain Pringles.
Yeah. So whatever reason, I'm like, get tired. And the problem is, so when I get tired, especially when I get tired and I'm alone at night with my computer.
Yeah, that's when you make the most mistakes.
Horrible.
Mistakes.
So here's what happens. So
abound.
So I don't even know what I clicked through next. It was like people being jerks was the next compilation I watched. Okay.
And all of a sudden you were watching people murder each other.
Well, no, I didn't.
Before you knew it, it was a Clockwork Orange situation.
I didn't get straight into that, but I stayed up until, so it was like 10:30. I remember every like 4 or 5 minutes I'd be like, all right, this is my last one. I'm going to go to bed. And then I stayed up until 1:30.
Yeah, I've had those nights.
So Diana comes in and I had my headphones on and I turn around and I'm bleary-eyed because I've been watching proposal videos for the last hour and a half.
It went the other way.
Yeah, it went the other way. So I was watching just like wonderful stuff. People giving each other adoption papers, just like really cute moments and stuff. It just like kind of just weeping slightly. And so Diana comes in, I have my headphones on. And she like tapped me. She's like, I thought you were dead. Like, I thought you just died in here. Because I woke up. She's like, I've had a full REM cycle. Where are you?
And she just hears moaning and weeping.
So I'm like, oh shit, thank God.
You were dead.
I basically was. And the thing for me is I realized that, so there's an idea in psychology called habit extinction. And this is a huge problem, generally speaking, when it comes to habits, which is that any bad habit that you have is never gone. So it's called extinction, which I think is a dumb word to use.
Yeah, that seems like the opposite of what
happens.
It does seem like
it's really high. It's like hibernation. It's probably a better way for it. Because what happens is the habit is still there. It's always still there. And if the conditions are right, it will come right back. It's
sort of a dormant habit volcano.
Yes. And it's full strength when it comes back. So for me, like I used to have some shitty habits that involved basically like watching stupid YouTube videos or like staying up too late or being on Imgur or Reddit or whatever else. And they all are kind of bound together into like being kind of tired, being nighttime, being at my computer, and then sort of starting that Pringle eating situation where you get one of them, and then I'm just gone for like 2.5 hours.
Then the fun don't stop.
Yeah. Or the horror doesn't stop in my case. So, this happened to me and super annoying because then on Saturday, of course, so I woke up like 8 on Saturday, 8 or 9, which is when I normally wake up. But I'm tired as fuck now. Because of like bleary-eyed, was like sort of crying half.
Yeah,
of the night.
it's hard to recover the next day from something like that.
Yeah, so I only ended up getting like a little bit of all the stuff on my.
It's not much different than just like being out drinking or something.
It felt the same.
Mentally,
it feels
just kind of fucked up.
I'm kind of hungover, basically.
Yeah.
So I had like a YouTube hangover on Saturday. But the point here is that there's something
YouTube hangover.
Yeah, I mean it's something I've always had a hard time with. Is like how do you guard yourself against? Because especially if you've done the work to sort of overcome whatever your bad habits are, where they are. And like when they come out.
Well, yeah, so I think it's especially difficult when they are internet-based habits because you use the internet for all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Well, so the next
means
day,
those habits, they're just right there.
Yeah.
So the next day, one URL away.
I was like, oh, I just need a YouTube limiter. But then I realized like I watch probably at least an hour, if not an hour to 3 hours of art tutorial videos now on YouTube a week. I listen to music through YouTube because I have YouTube Red. So
yeah, this is the thing that I've been always wondering about is that YouTube is sort of. You know, people always joke about like, oh, you can learn anything on YouTube. It's like you can, but will you? Yeah. Do people learn anything on YouTube? Do they?
I have. Well, I have, but it's a risky thing, especially if it's evening and I'm like, oh, I just want to, maybe I'll do like another face tutorial or something, try to figure out how to draw face. It's very easy to be like, no, because they have your suggested thing. Your suggested thing is never the thing you're looking at. It's the thing you looked at previously.
Right. Because YouTube is ad driven and their metric is engagement,
which is how long you're stuck there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But here's the interesting thing. So I also have YouTube Red because I don't want to watch ads. Right.
Yep.
But it's weird to me that YouTube Red, when I'm subscribed to that, also wants me to be engaged constantly, right?
That is weird.
Because I'm paying a flat fee now. I'm not watching any ads. So they don't.
So they should show you bad stuff.
They should just not recommend videos to me anymore.
Yeah.
But then this is kind of like the PlayStation situation. Like if you're a subscriber, they have to go do all this work to undo, all their UIs and stuff.
Right. And I mean, this is something that I've looked for because I've found Chrome extensions to do all kinds of stuff. Like I had I used to use Facebook, not a lot, but more than I wanted to. And I got the newsfeed eradicator.
Love that thing.
Which it just deletes the part of Facebook that makes you want to look at Facebook, which is that
feed,
which is the constant drip feed of people's baby pictures or whatever.
I have a different strategy that's similar. Since now they let you unfollow and hide people, I just unfollow and hide everybody. So now that's a Facebook mechanism. It can't go away. I'm not relying on an extension.
Right.
It's pretty
But
nice.
interestingly,
if I log in 3 weeks, because I've got, I don't use Facebook at all either. And I nuked my account a few years ago. So my friends list is now very small after I rebuilt it. But even still, it's amazing because I can get like 3 weeks without checking it and the feed will be the same.
Yeah.
Because all the new content is just
I now check Facebook about every 8 to 10 weeks to see if I have a personal message, which is usually very old. And that's the whole thing. And the reason that I was able to get out of it is just because of the newsfeed eradicator.
Right.
And the thing I always notice about YouTube is that it has that fucking that autoplay next thing, which Netflix also does, by the way, as well as the recommended videos thing on the side, which are algorithmically driven based on the things that you compulsively click on. Right. And so like, I want to be able as a YouTube Red subscriber, I want to be able to say, don't autoplay things and don't recommend me videos. Yeah. Just show me exactly my search results, like what I manually searched for. That's it. Right?
Well, it's an interesting thing. And I think with, I'm curious where this will design wise, where this will go in the next couple of years, because sort of the nature of funding through the internet is changing a bunch, where the ad companies are things are getting a little dicey because of all the ad block stuff going on in terms of how people pay for content. And I'm curious if there's going to be a suite of settings that start coming out that are essentially like attention related, where it's like, okay, you want to use this service, you get to dictate how the service uses you in some ways, as opposed to just.
No, I don't think they want that.
Yeah,
I think very few people are fully aware of what this is doing to them, and I think companies. What was the term? Companies don't want you to consume their content; they want their content to consume you, right? Well, and they want it to be the case that you wait for the next season of Blah to come out on net. Like, why do you think it is that every week some new big show hits Netflix that it's time to binge on?
Oh, right? Apparently they're going real hard on this too. They're going to be adding something like 700 shows this year.
Yeah. I mean, people will be utterly consumed by this. Like it's been bad.
Yeah, but
it's only going to get worse.
This isn't a Netflix phenomenon. This is an internet phenomenon. This was true just when all we had was TV. And it is still the case that when people aren't on the internet, they're watching TV instead, right? Yeah. So
or they're just watching TV on the internet.
Or on the internet. Right? And I think the thing that kind of drove people off of TV into the internet was that there are some options without ads where you can but I think it was way less that. I mean, that's what it was for me, but I think it was way less that for most people than it was the on-demand nature of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people seem to be completely, I still know, like, whenever I'm at the gym, because they have TVs playing everywhere, it's all just like normal.
I wish they just
stuff.
had one treadmill pointing away from the TV.
Just all the rest.
Just one of them.
Or a doctor's office where they're playing like HGTV or something, like I'd forgotten just how ad saturated that shit is. And
it's hard to watch.
It's crazy. Yeah. It is so crazy. And I know that a huge number of people, a huge fraction of people just spend most of their time watching that stuff. And they're sort of just unaware of how much of their life is being consumed by people selling them ads. It's horrible.
Yeah, I mean, a big part of my goal for this year in particular was to be less of a consumer of other people's content and more of a creator of that content. So I'm trying to like get that balance a little bit better. So yeah, I felt pretty horrible about myself after Saturday morning. I woke up and I was like, fuck. Cause it nuked. It wasn't even just the time usage, just that night, right?
You didn't even play Celeste
the next day. Well, I did it on Sunday. I managed to get it.
But you didn't do it. So I mean, because Celeste would have been a good use of your time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I had a similar experience, not with YouTube stuff, but over the weekend I was playing World of Warcraft, and I noticed something kind of interesting, just sort of in the aggregate. So I reactivated my subscription about 3 months ago, and so I just did a 3-month subscription, and my subscription, so it's up in just a few days or whatever. And I noticed that so much of what I was doing in that game was completely unrewarding, non-challenging menial tasks that gave a very small amount of progress towards some reward, right? Like a grind, basically. Right. And what I realized what I was really logging in for was the social aspect of like being able to do fun stuff with people. But people are so busy doing chores in that game that it's hard to get them to come do
sounds like
fun and challenging
go
stuff.
Play Fortnite.
Well,
just hop right into the action there.
Yeah, but I can't play with PlayStation users. But,
unfortunately,
well, you can because you're not playing off of an Xbox.
Well, that's true. That's true. But yeah, so I was thinking about that, and I was kind of reflecting on my past few months and how I don't think I've been as sort of in command of my life over the past few months as I otherwise would have been. And I was thinking about this problem of games that do this in particular, that have this sort of demand for constant engagement. They can't overstress you as a player, right? They can't demand you be like really intensely playing all the time. And so what they do is they tend to sort of drip feed these really mundane piles of tasks to you, which is really convenient in the sense that you never have to think about what you're going to do next because you just got this pre-built
stuff to do.
You get this pre-built laundry list of just infinite things to do. And as soon as you clear out 3 things, boom, 3 more appear, and everything you do makes progress towards something, right? And I think there's a whatever you spend a lot of time doing with your brain tends to start to think of things in that way or view things in that way or get good at things in that way, right? And so like if you watch a lot of TV, because of the constant bouncing around between ads, it becomes harder to just focus on stuff, right? And I think similarly, if you expose yourself to something a lot that is just constantly drip feeding tasks to you, then the act of managing your own tasks becomes a huge pain in the ass, right?
As in like generating that task
generating
list,
your own task list,
prioritizing it, deciding your own rewards.
Right. Because it's so much easier to just log into a thing where you have a pre-built list of tasks that seem like they're working towards something that's meaningful. Right. Yeah. So I was thinking about that and thinking about sort of things that I've let slide over the past few months that were not difficult things to do, but that I just didn't want to go through the steps of planning them and organizing them. And I was,
it's kind of like Adam's poking the fan situation from last week,
Yeah. But I think it is something to think about, which is whatever it is that you engage with a lot, you do need to be kind of thinking about, what is this doing to me? Like, because everything you do kind of changes the way that you approach everything else. Right. And the more time you spend on any one specific thing, the more it changes you. So anyway, it's an interesting thing to
so I guess so is your habit going forward? You nuking the WoW subscription? You just kind of trying to get back to basics and
Yeah, for a while.
It sounds like what you should do is play some sort of sim, something where you have to define your tasks.
Yeah. Well, I think that's actually that actually kind of brought me to. I did a bunch of journaling on this because, of course, we make video games. Yeah. And I'm always thinking about the ethics behind things because video games, like all things, can be abused by people. And I think as designers, you do need to consider, if I make my game built around like drip feeding 1-minute tasks. So think about the Diablo 3 quest system, right? Where back in Diablo 2 in the early 2000s, you had like 6 quests, and each quest would take about an hour or so, and it was a pretty open-ended sort of large thing that you had to undertake.
It was just like defeat the boss or whatever.
Like kill Baal or whatever.
Right.
So that was your thing.
So now you dive into a dungeon for an hour trying to figure out where he is.
Where the fuck is Bam?
You're trying to find him.
Kicking down every door, bail.
Yeah, you got to think about it.
Like, he's not here.
Yeah, he's in the next room. Please leave me alone.
And you're like, sorry, I need to murder you. You might have loot.
I will be killing you.
Who's the villain?
But
really?
Yeah, so that's how Diablo 2 worked. But then Diablo 3, they never give you a big quest. They just give you an infinite series of
3 to 5 minute things.
Yeah, just under 5 minute things that none of which are hard. Mm-hmm. None of which. And this is something that we noticed when we jumped in to play Diablo 3 on hardcore mode.
Yeah.
We made hardcore barbarians using the season pass that are like, so hardcore mode means if your character dies, you're permanently dead. And at no point, even when we set the difficulty to max, at no point did we feel threatened by literally anything in this game.
Yep.
But
we are two barbarian ladies.
That's
so,
true.
What's threatening?
I mean, what are you going to do?
Who's going to fight you?
You can't stop that.
Ain't nobody coming.
But yeah, so I mean, there's this way of designing games, and we talk about it with loot boxes and everything else. There's this way of designing games that really kind of preys on the dopamine drip.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I think there's a couple different avenues for people to explore when it comes to what part of a psyche you're trying to like poke at and get to react to you. And actually, so I played Celeste on Sunday night, really fun platformer. And I noticed one really interesting thing about it, which is that the respawn time is super fast. So it plays similar to Meat Boy or Levelhead, where the levels are very small and then you just die a lot sometimes. But they occasionally do this thing where there'll just be a huge difficulty spike. So most of the game is pretty well laid out, and then you'll have this level that just like, in the middle of you having like an easy time in the last couple, maybe you died once in the last couple runs, you come on this level and you die like 40, 50 times. I mean, I'm talking like a 50 plus X sort of change in how difficult it is. But the thing is, and you could look at that as a designer, depending on your mode, and you could say that's bad, right? Because you're losing out on this like 3 to 5 minute sort of drip feed thing. But I loved it actually as a player, right? Because I was able to use the skills and sort of go along, and then suddenly just get this in this position where I'm like, what? Like how what?
Yeah,
how do I do
you need
this?
to be kind of shaken out of the stupor sometimes.
It's like Diana waking me up at 1:30 in the morning being like,
you're
on
dead?
YouTube. Are you dead? And I think it's actually nice. And so what I noticed from that, what they do a really good job of is this idea of like rhythm and cadence with their design. So a game where you only have those drip fed tasks, I think tends to kind of feel kind of zombified afterwards. Like we've all played it before, like the clicker, like a clicker is the best example. There's not any rhythm to that. It's just the same thing repeatedly. But when it comes to a game that sort of changes it up, where maybe there's a boss fight here and there, there's these difficulty spikes that suddenly happen sometimes. It sort of shakes you out of the reverie a little bit, which I actually think is really good. Like it feels much better after having played it than I think if it was just a constant kind of.
Yeah, and I think that's the way to think about it is, to instead seek out games that encourage problem solving and thinking and skill and have actual challenges in them, as opposed to games that are more of a, I mean, it is the case that, Diablo 3 is very much like cookie clicker, and like
it is
same thing with World of Warcraft. You go out into this amazing, beautiful world, and then you just like click a button and now you get points. Right. And that's basically the whole thing. It's very sort of dumbed down for that. So it's just something to think about. It's very weird. All right, let's get on to some questions. These questions come from our listeners over at podcast.bscotch.net. So if you'd like to get a question on a future episode, get over there, put your question in the text box. Here we go. First question. SlyFoxglove says, so I've taken an interest in reading more. In past podcasts, Sam gloats.
I gloat?
About being able.
Everybody does always say you're a gloater.
About being able to. Everybody being this guy or gal. Sam gloats about being able to download written language through his vision squishes at incredible speeds.
Okay. Yep. That took me a second to get what they were going, but I got it.
Do you have any tips on reading faster? Is it similar to learning to type faster?
Yes. You just learn how to do it. There's a book called
Yes, you just fucking learn it.
There's a book called Breakthrough Rapid Reading. That's the one I used. And you just do the exercises. What this means is that you're going to be reading the same pages over and over again, because you take whatever book you're reading and then you basically do the exercises from the book on that book. So you have a passage, maybe 3 pages, you read it, and then you read it again, but you time yourself and you start like winnowing down. So you go from maybe 3 pages in 3 minutes to all 3 pages, you have to read them in 1 minute. And it's simply the act of like moving your damn eyes and keeping your eyes focused, because your eyes always try to basically come backward. They try to backtrack quite a bit. So
stupid eyes.
So it's really about learning. It is a training thing. So I did it I think I only did it for like 2 weeks, and I like doubled my reading speed. So and that was like 30 minutes a day.
But you have to treat it like a sport.
Yeah, it is like a sport.
You can't just go, I read. Over time, I will just read faster.
Yeah,
because you won't, because you're just always doing it.
It's literally when you're doing the practice, what you're focusing it on is reading fast, not on reading, which is the weird thing. So you have to learn the techniques for doing it, and then I used a spreadsheet just to track my progress. And once I hit I think I hit 1,600 words per minute or something like that, and I was like, that's good enough. I'll take it. And then now I think after years of not practicing, I'm probably at somewhere between 600 and 800. So still fast, but definitely not where
So you got to hit that high water mark and then let the tide recede a little bit.
Whatever. It's good. They stick with you for a while.
Yeah, but it is that training is incompatible with laying in bed with a Kindle, which I know from experience because that was how I tried to do it.
Yeah, you have to sit. I would sit at a desk or at your dining room table.
A hard chair that hurts your ass.
A real physical book.
A physical book. Get a timer on maybe on your phone. And then you can have your laptop or tablet or whatever off to the side so you can enter in your, track your progress.
Yeah, you got to do it.
It's real work like anything. But that said, there are some little things you can do. If you just read about what the practice is and what, because it's mostly about what your eyes are doing. And after that, then it's practice, right? And so even if you just kind of read up on that stuff and just understand what the point is, because it's all about how your eyes are moving. Because I did that, and my reading speed is easily twice as fast as it was just from
just used your damn
learning
finger.
how to do it.
This is the thing. Like everyone makes fun of people who use their fingers to read because they're like, "Oh, you're in kindergarten." You read at least 30% faster just by using your finger.
Yeah, because actually, from backtracking.
Yeah. Actually, though, when I use my finger, it slows me down because I keep accidentally turning the page on my Kindle.
This is why I don't
incompatible with Kindle.
Yeah, that's why I don't necessarily read on Kindle all the time. Only if I need to bring like 3 books on a plane or something.
I still prefer reading on a Kindle, but it does slow down my reading. Definitely.
Yeah, this is the problem with these fucking touch screens. Why does everything have to just respond to the slightest?
I know it's kind of a bummer because I got my new Kindle when I lost my last one. Actually, it was GDC last year when I lost my last one. And it was the newer model. And I was pumped about it because it has this sort of haptic feedback buttons on the sides, and I was like, fuck yeah. But there's no way just to turn off the internal page turn.
Right.
So it just still has both. And so I still don't even have the option of just using my finger to.
But it even has multiple inputs, so you can swipe, you can just graze the edge, you can gaze upon it longingly.
Yeah, I do think we talked about
page,
but you can't have it not turn the page.
Yeah,
we've talked about a few of those core skills that if you want to just sort of increase the speed at which you can get better in life, period, learning how to type really fast, learning how to read really fast are two of the sort of core things nowadays that. If you can do both of those, then your ability to absorb knowledge or just to, plow through maybe tutorials or articles or whatever else just goes way up.
You got way more time to watch fail videos.
Yeah, that's the reason I'm able to do that,
And your ability to use a computer effectively.
Yeah.
Like you only need a few keyboard hotkeys. That's all you need.
Don't be opening new tabs with the plus button.
When I see somebody right click something and click copy and then right click somewhere else and click paste.
Gives you a little heart attack.
It's just a fucking nightmare. It's
for me, it's
waking nightmare.
For me, anytime somebody uses shortcuts on their desktop or the taskbar instead of just hitting, this is for Windows, but instead of just hitting Windows and typing, because you can just hit Windows and type the name of the thing and hit enter, and there you go. It's a long
things you I didn't even know that.
I know.
The guy made fun of me last week for it.
I know Sam's the hotkey sort of,
in a very specific context.
But exactly that one context.
Just an Inkscape.
But if you see somebody using a computer and they have no hands on the keyboard at all, like that person doesn't know how to use a computer.
Yeah, I haven't bought a keyboard. I bought a ThinkPad, a standalone keyboard with a little nub in the middle, so that I don't have to take my hand off to use the mouse. So that way my fingers are always there. You can use hotkeys for most things, and when I can't, then I just move my index finger over like a quarter of an inch, and then I go.
Can you click with that nub?
There's little thumb clickies on the bottom of the.
But I find this kind of interesting how, especially nowadays, computers are everyone's tool.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, to do your job, no matter what your job is, you're a farmer. I don't care. You're using computers all fucking day.
If all you do is read Reddit and watch YouTube, still use computers.
You're using computers all day, right? Yeah. And so no matter what aspect your job takes, you still at some point need to get on a computer and do stuff with it to manage things and whatever. And people people just don't seem to think that it's important to learn how to master this one universal multi-tool.
Well, no, I think what it is, you get up to a level of proficiency, and then you're like, I'm good.
You're
it's the same thing with the reading, right?
Yeah.
I got up to a certain point, I'm like, I'm good. I could go further.
I am able to send emails.
Yes.
I can send a 200-word email after 3 hours of hunting and pecking with individual index fingers on my. I'm good.
Yeah,
I am good. You know,
you need to get some Mario Teaches Typing up in that business.
Yeah. We grew up on Mario Teaches Typing. That shit was dope.
That was awesome.
And now we all type 115 words per minute. So
Happy Mario Day. Yeah.
Happy Mario Day.
All right. Next question comes from PeanutEanut, who says, "Hello, wonderful people. I am a huge fan of your games plus the podcast, but I stopped playing Crashlands after hearing there was to be a huge content overhaul. How do you feel about creating mixed incentives?" I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah.
I think you should take a break.
Seems fine, yeah.
You know?
Take a break.
We got an email last week from some company talking about, so this is what happens leading up to GDC, by the way, is
oh my God.
GDC sells your contact info to everybody.
And then every fucking company is like, hey, we know how to solve engagement, user acquisition, monetize your users, derp-a-doo-doo.
My favorite thing is one of them sent us an email and they were like, here's the problems you have and here's how we solve them. We're like, those aren't our problems.
We don't have those problems. Go the fuck away.
Get out of here.
So one of the things that we hear about a lot this time of year is user engagement.
And retention.
Which is the exact thing that we're just talking about with YouTube, right? Where they're like, they want you to be engaged. In other words, they want you to be constantly.
They want to have a ring. They want you to be married to it.
Boom.
They want you to be constantly using their product. And I actually responded to one of these emails and I was just like, hey, we don't play the engagement game because we sell our games to our players and then we literally don't care what they do with them after that. It's their game now, and we just don't give a shit.
Yep. Have fun.
And the person was like, oh, okay, well.
What a refreshing
have a good day.
Yeah, well, I mean, with this update in particular, I would say definitely if you're playing the game right now, definitely take a little break.
Take a break.
Because we got some cool stuff coming. So we talked about this actually. There's a bunch of games in early access right now. One called Deep Rock Galactic, which we all really want to play.
Take a break. Go play some Deep Rock Galactic.
No, but here's the thing.
Don't play it.
Oh, don't play it
because it's in early access.
Take a break from everything.
And the thing is, you can only experience something once, right? So the saddest thing about game dev is that you'll work. I mean, Crashlands is a good example of this. Work for 2 years on the damn thing, and none of us got to experience it as a first time player.
Yep.
Just nothing. Levelhead's gonna be the same way. It's always the same damn thing.
Yep.
And I was playing Celeste yesterday, and they do a bunch of really good jobs with cutscenes and all sort of fun effects and things. And I was like, it's really fun to experience this. And I know the second time I'd be like mashing the B button.
Yeah, you're not gonna give a fuck.
Like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, same deal with what was it? Super Smash Brothers when they had all the cinematics. So I think which one was it? I remember.
They're so amazing.
4 or something. But yeah, the cinematics between those things were fucking spectacular. And I remember watching that thing, and I actually continued playing it because I wanted the next cinematic in the thing, you know. And but yeah, then I continued playing, and every time I saw him after that, I was like, "This is pretty good."
It gets
I guess.
Yeah.
I wish I could unlearn everything about orbital mechanics so that I could play Kerbal Space Program again. Because it was so fucking fun trying to figure out just like, how do you steer the rocket? How do you get to space? And now I can do that shit with my eyes closed. I have done it actually with my eyes closed. I don't know if I told you guys.
Yeah, and there are a few games that I consider that to have ruined for myself. So like Slime Rancher is one of them. Because Slime Rancher was out in early access quite a while ago. Yeah, and my wife and I played it over a weekend. We actually thought it was multiplayer because we remembered playing together, but it's a single player game that we're just playing at the same time. But we had a great time. We spent a day, gaming and sharing what we were doing. So it was effectively multiplayer. But we had a blast. But it was like 6 hours worth of game at that time, and I don't even know it's launched now. I think.
Yeah. It's full
and I assume they've added all kinds of content. I have no idea. But because I already played that first 6 hours, and
you don't want to play through the whole 6 hours again.
Yeah, none of it, because all of it was new at that time. It was like really fun and interesting, and I wanted to find out what the next thing was. But now it would be chores basically to figure out to get to the point that I left off, and then start experiencing new content. And so I was thinking back on that when one of you guys was like, "Oh, we should play this
Deep Rock
Galactic.
It looks rad
because it looks really cool, and I really want to play it." But then I was like, "No, I gotta maintain." Because every time I decide to go against my policy of no early access, I regret it.
Yes.
There's never been a time that I have not regretted it. So I'm gonna maintain that stance.
It's a good one.
That is a good one.
So I'd say if you're in the middle of playing it, just take a little break, because we have some really cool stuff coming, including, by the way, axes now cause berserking.
Yes, we were removing crit from axes, and instead you just go fucking crazy when you have an axe.
So now you can choose. You can choose to use a sword and make people bleed, use an axe and get berserking for yourself, or use a hammer and stun people. And then there's a combo system that builds off of those three things, which is super fucking cool.
Yes.
So this is the whole thing. Like I went through and I was just playing through the sandbox modes to test the story stuff we built, and with the new combo system, I spent a good couple minutes basically outfitting Flux with a particular way of murdering things, different trinkets, different gadgets that all sort of work together. So I think at one point I could bleed an enemy, and then as soon as they were bleeding, then I could unleash just a torrent of hell upon them that caused all of these combo effects that built off each other. So they were bleeding, they were poisoned, I think they were on fire, and it was amazing. It was
I'm pretty excited about this combo system.
It's gonna be good. Take a break.
Well, I think this is an interesting point too, because one of the comments we always get about Crashlands is people go, well, it's a little too grindy for me.
Yeah.
And I think part of that just comes down to when you fight enemies and stuff, it all comes down to kind of the same. Yeah. You just go up and you just kind of hit them a few times, maybe use a gadget and you're done. With the combo system in there, it really spices up the combat a lot.
Can enemies do combos on you?
No.
Okay.
No, very good.
Because that would also spice up
we had the debate about whether building combos passively into things. So like, once you're frozen, then if you get caught on fire, then you explode or something like that. But it was way more interesting to actually put combos on specific active gadgets and stuff. So it's like with the blowpipe, the little one of the first gadgets you can make, it throws a little poison dart. The damage of that gets amplified if you hit a bleeding target. Right. So it's kind of specific to that gadget. So then what you want to do then is get the right weapon that has the effects you want.
Even though since someone's bleeding now, the poison has to swim upstream like a salmon.
Well, but there's open wounds now to get in there.
Oh, I see. So it's basically getting past the skin barrier.
Yeah. And poison, as we know, always swims upstream anyways.
Yeah.
It does.
It is the salmon of chemicals, I think.
So what doesn't compound with bleeding to make it more effective?
Lightning, because
but it seems like it can just crawl up your blood and go in you better.
No, because the thing is, because lightning, lightning needs more blood to kind of go through as a conductor.
True.
And when you're running out of it, then lightning is like, I can't.
You're too dry.
I'm just too dry.
I was wondering the other day. By the other day, I mean yesterday when I was showering. Could you have a cardiovascular system that actually, like, you were just like a shell, and then your heart was actually like a blood sprinkler? Okay.
Yeah, obviously.
And it just shot blood like crazy into the shell of your body.
How would it come back?
And then it somehow you got pumps in your feet, pump it back up.
So you've got like two tubes going down to your feet.
You have foot hearts and then a chest sprinkler.
Yeah. So that would work as long as you're always standing upright.
Yeah.
Oh,
but you could think about that. But it could be because if you're just a shell anyway, it could be that you have hearts that are actually little creatures that just go wherever gravity is strongest, right? So they just walk around inside of you.
And then you have a condition where like they get stuck in your knee. You get your heart beast gets stuck in your knee, and then you die. Your left arm dies for a little while because you can't spray blood into it.
Or a heart attack where the thing actually attacks you from the inside.
Or it would be nice if your limbs didn't die from blood loss if they just took a break,
It would be.
Yeah. You're like, there's no blood going to my arm. I'll just turn that off for a bit and then we'll pick it back up later.
Yeah.
And the other thing, if your body was a shell, a hollow shell that your heart was just shooting blood into, you would.
I was just thinking about it. You would kind of get good coverage, But
you would always kind of sound like it was raining.
Yeah, but
you'd be like a rain stick.
Yeah. Yeah. You could hear the blood kind of splooshing against.
It'd just be a nice.
Or maybe you would
noise.
Probably sound like a dishwasher.
I think you'd sound like. I think you'd sound like being inside a house during a rainstorm.
That's what I'm saying. You would hear the pitter patter of blood just sprinkling against your chest shell.
Yeah,
that's fucking weird.
Anyways,
you'd have to be pretty spherical for that whole thing to work.
It probably happened somewhere.
Yeah. All right, let's hit one more question for the day, and then we'll call it a night. All right, last question comes from Angrymuffin. As humans in the 21st century, he did spell that correctly. He put 2 A's in there. So, as humans in the 21st century, we use keyboards all the time, and it physically pains to write by hand.
That's true.
Why does it hurt so much? Did it hurt? Did it hurt? It's a great question. Did it hurt that much to write the Declaration of Independence by hand, or were people's hand meats more resistant to pain back then because they hadn't been massaged by keyboards
I think
yet?
you could get away with writing slowly back in the day. But because of how fast you can type, then when you go sit down to write,
You're rushing. It
feels so fucking slow that you're just trying to power through and get some letters out.
Yeah, people really wanted to take their time because there were only 8 pieces of paper.
Yeah.
And they were
and 1 bottle of ink.
Yeah,
and you use
like,
a fucking feather to do it.
And if you wanted more paper, you gotta go across town. You gotta ride your horse across town with an axe. You gotta cut down a tree. You gotta build your own, tie the tree.
Yeah, so you better take your time.
Yeah.
You know, but I think a big point.
It was really just procrastination. Like all the good handwriting back in the day was just procrastinating
around
from having to make paper.
Well, here's what I think. I think actually good handwriting is probably closely coupled with efficient hand usage during writing. Think about it. It's like cursive, loopy as fuck. Everything's connected. You know why?
Completely
efficient.
Completely unreadable.
Completely unreadable, but extremely efficient. So I think that's the thing. It's like when I basically write in all caps a lot for whatever reason.
I do whenever somebody needs to be able to read what I've written.
Yes. So maybe that's why. But even if I write in lowercase, it is very much a pain. But I think it's because all my letters, I mean, they're not connected.
Here's
they're
the thing.
Kind of doing their own dance.
I relearned cursive so that I could, because I had the same idea. I was like, okay, this must be
efficient.
Must be more efficient, you know. And I had a buddy who for a while we were exchanging letters just for shits and giggles because we were like, let's try that. Let's just see what that weird old practice was like, you know.
That sounds fun.
And so
pen pals.
So we were doing this, and I don't know, I probably wrote over a few months. I wrote something like 8 letters, something like that. Each one a few pages, all in cursive, and it was horrible. Every time.
But wait,
never got better. You were going to reveal some kind of
question.
Were
you practicing between those things? Because if you're going to write one letter every 2 weeks.
I was still like anytime I'd write in my notebook and stuff, I'd be writing in cursive too, you know. But it did not feel faster.
Interesting. Did your hand hurt less? Because that's
kind of a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we just doing it wrong? Maybe there's something to feathers. You know, maybe we got to go back. There's something to that.
No, I honestly think it has to do with speed, you know, because if you're going to write these like beautiful, like big cursive, really legible kinds of
size
things, you know,
also a thing too.
Size also has an impact. And if your focus is on just producing quality work so that your hand is comfortable, you're trying to keep everything nice and smooth, you know, you're really focused on the writing, then I think it could be a very pleasant kind of experience. But if you're trying to like get ideas out.
Well, I think you're right though, because we're so accustomed to being able to get words out as fast as we can think.
Yeah.
And when you're writing by hand, the whole time you're just like, I got to get these out. I got to go faster.
I'll give you a different one from the art side of things. So if you're writing you want to be writing not with your fingers, which is what most people do,
but with your mind.
With your mind.
Fuck you guys. But with either your wrist or your elbow. Because the further up you go in terms of which joint is controlling
Have you tried your shoulder?
Yeah, I was going to say, you should use your shoulder.
The reason you tried your
pelvis.
Oh, yeah, you got to write from the hip. It's like sports.
I'm sure you could, but I'm sure it would feel amazing. It probably does feel amazing. But here's the thing. I think if you write, the reason your hand hurts is because your hand is flexing because you're holding the pen and you're carving with your fingers essentially into the piece of paper. But if you're writing if you lock your wrist, say, and then just hold the pencil and don't do any finger movements, hold the pencil and then try writing more with your elbow.
This sounds insane.
It will not hurt as much.
As much though.
As much. I can't.
Instead, you'll get tennis elbow.
What if I just typed it? You know what I mean?
Nah.
If I just typed the thing, then it has the added bonus of being legible.
So speaking of illegible things, so most forms that you fill out to sign up for things can be done online if you're making an account or whatever.
Right.
But for some reason, some companies, like say, I don't know, life insurance companies, hypothetically, they do a lot of forms by
also
handwritten
mortgage companies.
Yep, mortgage companies, banks, basically anything where records are real fucking important. They require you to write it by hand.
Yep.
So the other day, my wife and I, so we have life insurance. It's a good thing to do. Get yourself some life insurance.
It's pretty cheap when you're young, too.
Yeah. It's good payout. So, but don't go murdering each other because they'll figure that out. So we got our life insurance and they sent us back the information. They're like, hey, everything's all set up. Everything's ready to go. And each of us has a separate policy on each other. And each of us had our own name written correctly on our own policy. And then the beneficiary was complete fucking gibberish. So my name on her policy, they only got 2 letters correct.
You don't have a 4-letter name.
I mean, out of my whole name. like my whole 10-letter name, they got 2 letters correct. And then the same fucking thing.
Wait. Did it come up? Was it still a name or was it just random letters?
It was just like random fucking letters. I don't know how it happened. And so then I called them and I'm like, this is pretty wrong. And so they're like, okay, no problem. We'll send you an electronic form and you can just type it in. And then I'm like, why the fuck didn't we do this? But yeah, the idea that you'd have a company where you have to manage this quantity of information and you're doing it not only on paper, which is insane, but then demanding that people write it in by hand to begin with.
Because you got to type it.
The thing is, like,
the error risk is huge.
And probably what it was that each of us had to write our own name first on the policy, then write the beneficiary. By the time we get to the beneficiary,
your hand hurts so
your
bad.
hand is fucking cramping up. You're sweating. You got to have some Gatorade.
So you probably just literally wrote random letters.
I probably just
You're like, get me out of here.
I probably just threw some random letters on there, called it a day,
and assumed that they would figure out that since you were taking it out for each other, that they could just reference the other document. Yeah.
But you would think,
yeah.
So,
but they didn't.
They didn't think about it. Writing by hand, it's a nightmare. Don't do it. Just type. All right. That's all the time we have for this week. We'd like to thank our producer, Fat Bard, for making us sound good. Thanks to our community moderators who keep our Discord and forums running and keep all the riffraff out of there. God, there's so much riffraff.
That's true.
There is a fair bit of it, turns out.
Yeah. If you'd like to get more involved in the Butterscotch community, you can hop into our Discord server at discord.gg/bscotch and come say hello, unless you're riffraff, in which case, don't.
Yeah. And if you've never heard of Discord, because I realized after we've been doing this for a while, I was like, maybe people don't even know what that is.
It's a cool chat client.
It's like being on MSN Messenger back in the day.
Yeah.
Except with a bunch of people who like video games.
Yeah, which is
much
stellar.
Much better.
So if you're not using Discord, we use it for everything. Join it. They're not paying us any money yet.
Someday.
But you should still go join
it. We're paying them money.
That's true, actually. We're paying them money.
Yeah. I'm okay with it, though.
Yeah. Yeah. They're good people.
Also, if you'd like to adorn your body with Butterscotch merch, you can check out our shop over at shop.bscotch.net. We have T-shirts, mugs, stickers, posters. You name it. There's a good chance we don't have it because all we have is T-shirts, mugs, stickers, and posters.
Yep.
But if you want one of those things,
go ahead and get it.
Go ahead and get it. Also, we have a mailbox, so if you'd like to send us a nice package, like something like maybe an M&M, something like that, you can find that over at mailbox.bscotch.net. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.